What's going on, YouTube Nation? Chris Pearson here as always. Exciting stuff. This is the first official video for the new web series that I highlighted back in a couple weeks ago, last month. This is the first video for the new Jaguars quarterback quest. I'm really excited about this. I've been hyping this up now for a couple weeks, and now I'm finally getting a chance to delve into the uh, draft class for the quarterbacks this year. And again, as I mentioned, I don't want to be that guy who keeps harping on the Jaguars forever for their unsuccess. I want to help them out. I want to hopefully find a quarterback for them in the future because personally, I don't think Blaine Gabbert or Chad Henne are the future at quarterback for Jacksonville. If they do, good, but not me. And also, I'm doing this because I want to see what it's like to be a scout. I want to kind of see how the breaking down of Gameville works, seeing the pros and cons and the guys that are out there in the draft class. And I tell you what, I mentioned it in my messages on the channel. Just watching the first four guys on the list, I took a lot of notes. Okay, I got a lot of notes for you guys. I got a lot of things to talk about on these first four guys in this video. Um, Now, I will say on here, I did try to record this video first using the Google Hangouts on Air feature. That didn't exactly go too well. It froze on me as I was writing and talking about my first prospect. So not going to use Hangouts on Air. I give it a try, give it a shot, but if it's going to do that while recording the video, then that's not going to work out. Uh, so my computer, for some reason, have issues on a lot of streaming live media anyway, so I guess it was a bad idea from the start. So I will just stick with the recording the traditional way that I do, that I just use here at home base. So I will say how I'm going to do this. Basically, I'm just going to go, I have the official CBS Sports draft list here. Here of the quarterbacks on the list, and I'm going to try to do 4 per video. Hopefully, and again I say hopefully that will take us up to April's draft. Again, I may have to condense a few of them maybe into more players in the videos. I don't know how long those will go then, but depending on the notes that I take, because I'm very detailed. I don't know if it's OCD or what. Some people think it is. I don't know if it is. I've never been tested for it, so I don't know. But but anyway, so these first 4 in this video you're going to see, these are names you'll probably recognize as we go down the list. Maybe some of these names you'll know, some of them you don't, but that's what I'm here for. That's to see what these guys bring to the table when it comes to the quarterback position. And I will say this, is Jacksonville going to draft a quarterback? I don't know. I'm not inside Jacksonville's war room. I'm not inside their front office. I don't know what they're going to do on draft day. I'm just hoping. I'm just trying to guide them in the right direction. I'm trying to lead them the right way. Need to go quarterback because right now I don't think there's a stable situation there at quarterback for Jacksonville. So I'm hoping that this will kind of give them a little perspective as to what to expect from these guys. So these first 4 names, at least the first 3 names you guys should know. On these guys, I watched game film, a couple of videos on each guys, but I mainly watched their biggest game of the season. Their best competition and who they're going up against. So the first guy on this list, Teddy Bridgewater of Louisville. I was really impressed when I watched the game that I did. I watched his performance in the Russell Athletic Bowl against Miami, his last college game, going against his hometown school where he's from, and he put on a show in that game. Louisville blew him out like 36-9 or something like that. And he played most of the game. He didn't get pulled till like late in the 4th quarter. I think it was because Louisville wanted him to set like a school record for like yards in a bowl game or completion in a bowl game, something like that. And he said it. He did it, and then they finally pulled him. So he was very impressive in that game. He reminds me a lot of Cam Newton in some ways. And I know I don't want to really try and compare NFL players to things, but like I said, I'm detailed, I'm methodical, I look for things in every play that they run. I look for these little different things, and a lot of things that he did reminded me a lot of Cam because of not only his running ability and his elusiveness, but the fact that he is very on point with his receivers. So let me mention his pros first. He is a great thrower on the run. He rolled out several times in this game that I watched, whether it was to the left or to the right. It was mostly to the left. But he just finds a way when he's on the run to make these throws to his receivers. A lot of dink and dunk passes, screen passes, sideline throws. Bridgewater is not exactly a deep ball threat, which is a little bit of a concern for me when it comes to Jacksonville because right now Jacksonville's receivers are like Justin Blackmon if he stays, Cecil Shorts. These guys are more known as deep ball guys. So either what Jacksonville's going to have to do if they draft Bridgewater is either help them refine that deep ball or tailor their offense to Bridgewater's style. So you'll just have to wait and see what happens on that. But he can throw on the run very well. He sells the play fake very well. And again, that's why I thought of Cam Newton with the read option in Carolina. He's able to tuck it, sell the play fake or fake off, and then throw a pass very quickly. Or he can tuck it and run. So either way, he does sell that very well. He quickly finds those open targets, laser precision, laser focus when it comes to his passes. He's able to find the open guy. There's a sequence of at least several times where he just makes these right on point throws, right on the money throws to his receivers. Does not hesitate with these throws. He knows exactly where to go. He knows exactly where his guys are and where they need to be. He finds them at mostly every single time. I mentioned the fact that he's kind of a screenplay style. Maybe that's kind of the offense that Louisville ran a lot with these screenplays and these sideline passes. So interesting to see how that's going to translate over to the NFL, whether that style will continue to be used or whether the team that drafts him they have to change their style. It just depends on where he ends up going. But like I said, if he goes to Jacksonville, will they use that style? Will they tailor the offense to that style? Remains to be seen. Like I mentioned, his footwork, very solid footwork, very elusive, able to get out of a lot of pressure. And he doesn't wilt in the face of that pressure either. I noticed at least 2 or 3 times he was making throws with a guy right in his grill, right in his face, and he stayed focused, that laser focus that he has, not being able to wilt in that pressure. Oh, you're going to pressure me? Well, I'm still going to make a throw. He finds a way. He never quits on the play. He's still able to make plays, even with pressure in his face, and it reminds me a lot of Johnny Manziel, who we'll also talk about in this video. He never quits on the play, and he's a very good decision maker. He makes a lot of good decisions based on where the offense is at the time. Whether he knows the down, he knows the distance, he knows where if he's pressure, sometimes he throws the ball away. He knows what's going on in terms of where at least his offense is at. He's very aware of that as well. He's very rhythm oriented is one thing I also noticed. When he gets in a rhythm, it is very, very difficult to get Bridgewater out of that rhythm unless you find a way to really pressure him where he doesn't realize what's going on. And I'll mention that one of his cons. He's very rhythm oriented. Once he gets in a flow, it's very tough to get that flow out of him. He's very, very consistent in that regard. And he spreads the ball around. He gets everybody involved. He doesn't focus on one receiver. When I think of that, I think of Detroit. Why does Detroit tend to struggle? Because they're very one receiver oriented. Can you name a Lions receiver outside of Calvin Johnson that's not injured? Exactly. They don't have anybody else usually. Nate Burleson broke his arm trying to hold a pizza box. Brandon Pettigrew was injured a lot this year. Fourier became the backup at tight end. Outside of them, and Ryan Broyles been a disappointment. I can't, I only name receivers when they're injured. I can't name any other receiver outside of Calvin Johnson that's healthy. And that's a concern. You've got to make your receivers better. Take Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, doesn't focus on just one guy. Okay, maybe the exception to the rule is Indianapolis with Marvin Harrison, but who else? He also threw to Austin Collie, Reggie Wayne, eventually not T.Y. Hilton. Dallas Clark. He gets his other receivers and his tight ends involved in the game because he finds a way to make them better. Bridgewater does the same thing. He is able to. I at least saw at least 5 or 6 guys that caught a pass during this one game. So Bridgewater finds a way to get guys involved. With Manning, he's got Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas. He gets these guys involved and makes them better. Why do you think Tom Brady had a cruddy receiving core this year? Because he didn't get them involved enough, and they weren't healthy enough. And he mostly focused on Gronk. Well, with Gronk out, whoop-de-doo, no receiving core now because that's your main guy. You've got to get everybody involved, and that's what makes Bridgewater a great player in that regard. Now, there are a few cons with him, a few downsides. I mentioned how he doesn't wilt in the face of pressure. Well, that's usually the pressure comes from the middle. Sometimes when he's focusing on his receivers down the field, he's looking up front of him. He's not looking behind him. He fails to see the pressure come on blitzes from the outside. At least 2 times I saw Miami rushers come from the outside and get to Bridgewater. So he needs to have a full field vision and be aware of what's going on the outsides of him as well, not just up the field where he's trying to make a quick throw to his receivers. Sometimes in the NFL, they'll start catching on to that. He needs to refine his fade route. He needs to be better with the fade route and the deep ball because, again, maybe he was tailored to this system at Louisville with these dink and dunks and these screens. He's got to work better on that. He did throw a couple deep balls in that game, but again, mostly he tends to overthrow those receivers. He's got to refine that and really work on that. He stares down his receivers, though, way too often. Now, there's a difference between being laser precision and looking right at the guy you're throwing to. And I noticed that a lot, that he tends to just look right at the guy and say, oh, there you go. NFL secondaries like Richard Sherman in Seattle, who even admitted this week that he picked up on Peyton Manning's signals and where his eyes were looking and where he was going. The good secondaries are going to pick up on that. Bridgewater's got to do a scan the field, play fake, pump fake, whatever he needs to do. He has to do a better job of pass faking. He can sell the play fake well all he wants, but he's got to do a better job of pass faking. Can't stare down the receivers. And this is kind of a half con, half pro, at least to me, but it's more of a con because it can backfire. He is not afraid to throw into deep coverage, whether it's double coverage, sometimes even triple coverage. He's not afraid to do that to make a play, but that really runs the risk of getting passes intercepted. He didn't have a lot of interceptions in college, but I don't even think he threw a pick in that Miami game, at least not from what I saw on film. He had 60 plus touchdowns to 24 interceptions, so that's a pretty good ratio. But so he doesn't beat himself, but he just takes a lot of risks with throwing into coverage. Overall, I think that Bridgewater is a very solid pick. In fact, some mock drafts do have Jacksonville taking Bridgewater at number 3, and I think it'd be a great pick for them. But if they do pick him, Jacksonville's going to have to make a decision whether or not to, whether or not to have him work on his skills to tailor to their offense or kind of tailor their offense to him. So a lot to decide in that, a lot to dissect. But overall, I think Teddy Bridgewater would be a very great fit for Jacksonville, and again could certainly become their quarterback of the future, if not the quarterback of now. So I really like what I saw out of Teddy Bridgewater. I've seen him play in many games for Louisville and been impressed by his overall skill set. So really like what I saw from Teddy Bridgewater. Next guy on the list, and this would probably be actually a very cheered pick by at least local Jacksonville faithful because this is a guy out of the Florida area. I'm talking about Blake Bortles from UCF. Now, a lot of you might not know who Blake Bortles is because you don't really follow Central Florida that much. Central Florida hasn't been a football powerhouse, but they were this past year. They made a BCS bowl game, won the American Conference title. And oh, by the way, they beat Baylor in that thrilling bowl game. So they proved that they were a legit team. And Blake Bortles, I watched him. I watched in his film. I watched him when they played South Carolina earlier in the year, and they almost knocked off a very good South Carolina team. In fact, I think I picked him to win that game that week because I had seen how well UCF had played in the past few years, and they only fell 2 points short. So they gave South Carolina all they could handle. And Blake Bortles has definitely shown that he can handle these big time situations. He's not afraid in these big situations. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck in some respects, and again, I'll mention why as I go through these pros and cons. And I mentioned one, he is very clutch. Bortles, he led that comeback against Baylor. He rallied a drive late to get that game close with South Carolina. He's got the clutch gene in him, and we've seen that from Andrew Luck a lot these first few years with Indianapolis. With these moments where he leads the team down the field to wins or at least making games close and interesting. Bortles has that in him. And again, I don't know if you can actually teach that, but certainly that's something that Jacksonville certainly could use because they really been competitive in games. And if they have a quarterback that can do that can be clutch in those situations and rally the team back, certainly be an asset for them as well. Like Bridgewater, Bortles is a great screen passer as well. He throws darts. He finds the open receiver a lot of times. He was able to really do that a lot in that game that I watched against South Carolina. Now, unlike Bridgewater, he does scan the field. He will look off from side to side. He will see the coverage. He's aware of what's going on, and he's not afraid to throw, whether it's to the side, to the middle, wherever. He's not afraid to put the ball where it needs to be, and that's a key thing. You've got to make the defense think. You've got to really make them wonder where that ball is going to go. You've got to confuse them. You can't just stare down a receiver and say, "Here you go." You can't do that. You've got to be kind of trying to definitely confusing them. So that really impressed me compared to Bridgewater, what Bortles is able to do there. When he has to, he does sell the play fake well. He doesn't use it as often as Bridgewater. He doesn't really use the play fake a lot. But when he does run, he has great speed. I mean, he is like 0 to this in just boom. A couple of the runs that he had in that game, I mean, we're just immediately tuck and go. He just zoomed like a bullet, and that was just, I was very impressed by that as well. Bridgewater, it kind of took him a few seconds to go once he got the ball, and that could be a concern as well. But Bortles, as soon as he tucked it, he knew what he was doing. Quick decisions, and that is huge. So I was very impressed by that as well. He's kind of similar to Bridgewater in the fact that also in the face of pressure, he still makes plays. He's still a playmaker with that pressure in his face. He's not afraid to do that as well. Also, but Bortles also has a lot of cons that I wasn't sold on from him. He underthrows a couple passes. Like Bridgewater, he's cognizant. Bridgewater tends to overthrow. Bortles underthrew a lot of passes that I saw in the game against South Carolina. He tends to throw at receivers' feet a lot. He needs to kind of refine, where he's making these throws. Maybe work on the arm mobility and strength a little bit because he underthrew a lot. Now regarding that as well, some throws, he'll put a little too much mustard on. He tends to put a lot of energy on some of his throws, and even sometimes he's a little too quick because the receiver sometimes a couple of these 2 or 3 situations they weren't ready for the ball to come to them. They hadn't finished their route yet. He needs to really kind of put a little more patience into that and not really put too much energy on some of those throws. He needs to wait for his receivers to first cut to where they're supposed to be in the route and then make the throw. Now sometimes pressure can have a lot to do with that, but in some of these situations he'd had like at least a few yards in the pocket and made these dart throws, and the receiver's like, "Whoa, I'm not ready yet." So, and then he dropped it. So he just needs to work on the patience factor a little bit. When he is surrounded by rushers, though, Bortles is not as elusive as Bridgewater is, or even Johnny Manziel for that matter. And he can be pressed into a lot of mistakes. There were at least 2 interceptions that he threw in this game against South Carolina where the pressure really got to him, and he just made a bad decision and a bad throw, and it led to a pick. So, or actually even a fumble. I think one of them was even a fumble. So he can be pressured into mistakes. So he's got to work on ball security. He's got to work on making better decisions when that pressure, just decision making in general. He needs to do a better job overall of making better decisions. he doesn't leave the pocket very often. He's usually very comfortable staying in the general pocket area, and that again is kind of concerning because again then defenses pick up on that and they can kind of see what he's doing. So again, that excuse me. That's kind of tied to mobility, so he needs to work on that. And he has no confidence in his deep ball, none whatsoever. Unlike Bridgewater, that can tend to at least make a few plays, he has no confidence in his deep ball, and he throws into coverage way too often, leading to again, I mentioned those interceptions. So Bortles needs to work on a lot of things. He certainly has some good things going for him. I mentioned the screen, the scanning the field, the clutch gene, making plays when he has to. But there's a lot of things that are definitely concerning that have happened to Jacksonville quarterbacks a lot over the years. So so the fans, obviously, the hometown fans, the Florida faithful would love the pick because he's a home area kind of guy. But in terms of Jacksonville's situation right now with the way they've protected their quarterbacks, which hasn't been good, I'm a little worried. I don't think Bortles would fit very well into their system unless he really finds a way to refine all the negatives that I saw on film. So that kind of worries me a bit. So not ideal for me. Unless he's able, again, to work on the cons. The cons need work, definitely. The pros are nice, but in this case, the cons need a lot of work. Now, on to Johnny Manziel. And you guys have probably seen it. You guys have probably talked about it a lot when I went on my rant. The one or two rants about Johnny Manziel when he was having his off the field behavior issues and that kind of thing, and the whole thing with that when he was being very arrogant and cocky and that kind of thing. And I guess that, and again, once he plays on the field, that all really starts to die down a bit, and he actually, I think that's just, as I learned throughout the year, I guess I kind of have to give him a apology, a mea culpa in a way, forgiveness in a bit, because I guess that's just who he is on the field. It kind of is kind of a Richard Sherman vibe in a way. He's very emotional, whether it be on the field, off the field, whatever. That's just his personality. And I guess I started to see that, but in some ways he does go all out for his teammates, which I'll mention here in his thing. I watched the game, and not only did I watch it live, but I analyzed the game film a little deeply when I watched it. I watched the Chick-fil-A Bowl when they played Duke, and that game was a fun game to watch. It was a wild game to watch. Duke got out to that early lead on them, and then A&M came back to win in very thrilling fashion, mostly because of Manziel. Excuse me. I'll do all these early shifts lately and haven't got much sleep. But this game, entertaining to watch at the time and entertaining to watch again when I analyzed Manziel's tape. So a lot of things obviously to like. As we've seen with Manziel, there's a lot to like about Johnny Manziel. Never afraid to tuck and run the ball. Never. He will do it on multiple occasions. He will do it, in the face of whatever. He is not afraid to do it. He is elusive. He is mobile. His footwork is absolutely outstanding, and he can make tacklers miss. He is fully aware of where the defense is at. Unlike Bridgewater, that doesn't see the pressure, and you don't think that Manziel can fake defenders out of their shoes, and at least a couple times against Duke, especially when they had the leaping play, he was staring. He was making guys frozen. Okay, he was just some of the things he does, and that was outstanding and fun to watch. Another guy I mentioned never quits on the play. Like Bridgewater, he's able to make plays. He doesn't quit on it. He's able to make magic happen in a way, if you will. That's just great stuff with that. He doesn't really this is something I like. He doesn't move too much in the pocket. He's very fluid. His motion, he doesn't dance around a lot like some people do. He doesn't do a step drop thing. Immediately he stays where he's at. And then he just makes his play, and it's very fluid. It's very rhythmic, like Bridgewater. It's all comes together in its so he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing going into the play, and then he executes it. That's a great thing to like about Johnny Manziel. He's very accurate, precision passes on the money, and again, like Bridgewater, he also can make great throws on the run as well. A lot of instances in that game where he was able to do that. Now, I'll say this, when I compare him, he's got the running ability of a Michael Vick in terms of the style, but he's got the passing ability of a Big Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, he's on point, and he directs traffic at the line, kind of like Peyton Manning does a little bit. He directs it. You know, you can see him in that game with the hand signals and letting guys know where the defense is at. He's very aware, and you got to have that awareness of what's going on around you. So he was just outstanding to watch him execute the line. He knows exactly where, again, his guys are going to be, and he knows exactly where to find them. And you got to have that ability in the NFL as well. Pressure, it doesn't matter where it comes from for him. He can avoid it either way. Again, it goes back to that elusiveness and that mobility, but there were multiple times again where the Duke guys were coming and Manziel just didn't care. He would fake out a couple guys again, then he'd make the play. I mean, whether it was running or whether it was finding an open receiver, he finds a way to make plays. And again, I mentioned, and then the last one, and again I mentioned this. He is a natural-born leader. He plays with that fire, that passion, that energy. And sometimes on the sideline, you need a guy like that. You need a guy that's going to bring, be a leader in the huddle, be that guy that's going to be the rah-rah. Kind of like Phillip Rivers. I kind of see him in that same vein. Phillip Rivers is very emotional, plays with passion in the huddle. He can be outspoken at times, but in the huddle and on the field, he plays with that passion, that emotion. That's what I see in Manziel as well. So a lot to like about Johnny Manziel. But there are a lot of things, again, to not like about Manziel. His durability is a bit of a concern, not as much. He was very healthy in the game against Duke, but he overcame injuries a lot throughout his couple years that he played at Texas A&M. So that certainly is going to be a bit of a concern because, again, you've got to, quarterback is a rough job to play. You're taking a lot of hits, and especially with a running quarterback like him, as we've seen with running quarterbacks like RG3 getting hurt, that's a bit of an issue. So he's got to be able to kind of shake that a bit. The deep ball for him, it could use a little bit of work. It could use a bit of refining, but certainly he's never afraid to launch a deep ball. And sometimes the throws do work out, and he's able to connect with the deep receiver. So actually he could work for the deep threat guys that Jacksonville has. So, but definitely could use a little bit of work. He tends to throw some passes. He tends to underthrow a couple receivers. He tends to throw them in front of receivers a little bit. Not all of them, but at least a few. Tends to underthrow a little bit, so that could use some work. Now, when it comes to rushers up the middle, sometimes he can be a bit blindsided by that. That didn't happen very often, at least in the game that I watched. But at least in the first half of the Duke game, he tended to be blindsided a couple bit when the rushers came straight at him up the middle. Unlike Bridgewater, who gets frustrated on guys from the outside, it was up the middle where where Manziel sometimes took a lot of heat. So that can't happen from time to time. He needs to work on disguising the play fake, though, a little bit better. He needs to, usually it's just, he'll hold it out and then he'll bring it back. It needs to be like one and done, like done, quick, quick and go. You can't keep the ball held out here for a couple seconds, otherwise defense will come in, boom, they're gonna knock the ball out. So he needs to work on that, doing that a little bit better. And I mentioned the fact that the behavior, it could always use work. It could always use fine-tuning. He needs to put most of that, though, in the past and aside from him and show that the scouts in the NFL that's not going to be an issue when he goes to the NFL. Now, a lot of mock drafts are saying that Manziel could potentially go even earlier than Bridgewater, certainly possibly earlier than Bortles, though others are saying he could go lower than that. Mel Kiper has him going first to Houston, which I guess would make sense for the hometown factor, the fact that he's from, going Texas A&M in that area, staying in state, and the Texans certainly would love to have him. But would he work in Jacksonville? That's. I think certainly he could. Again, Jacksonville needs a fiery leader. They need someone that is not only will be a leader in the huddle, but is able to make the throws when they need to, and be an electric player. Why do you think Jacksonville wanted Tim Tebow so bad? Because they wanted a leader and an electric player. I see that in Manziel. I think he's in a similar vein and a similar style. So, hey, Jacksonville, if you wanted Tim Tebow so bad, Johnny Manziel is pretty similar in style to him. So I think certainly he could work out in that regard for Jacksonville if he's still available at the 3 spot. If Bridgewater's not there anymore, then certainly I think he's a guy that could go to him at number 3. So I think he could work. I really think that he could definitely work out and energize things in Jacksonville there. Oh, Jeopardy! I'm waiting for the Winter Olympics to come on, and what's weird is that it says 7 o'clock Wheel of Fortune, and it's Jeopardy. It's kind of weird. All right, let's see what else is on in the meanwhile. There we go. Basketball. All right, and then the last quarterback that I looked at is Derek Carr of Fresno State. Of course, you can recognize the Carr name and the Fresno State connection. Yes, his brother was David Carr, who was a number 1 overall draft pick by the Houston Texans a couple years ago. Now, his career really didn't pan out in Houston. So, the only thing he did was he set a record for getting sacked the most times, but maybe that's attributed to Houston's offensive line issues. But Derek Carr, though, when I watch him, the film I looked at of him was the Mountain West Championship game against Utah State. And he reminds me a lot of, this is going to be a hard one because I'm going to be really tough on him, Eli Manning. Because Derek Carr, kind of similar to Bortles, can be pressured into making mistakes. And he made a lot in this particular game that I watched. But when plays work for him, they work very well. He's very similar to Manziel in the fact that he does direct traffic at the line of scrimmage. Again, he does the same thing that Manziel does. So he is aware of where his receivers need to be, and he's aware of the routes that go on. He's got good field vision. So that's always, again, a good thing to have. But he's very confident, I've noticed, in making the tough throws downfield. He puts it right where his receivers can go and get the ball, whether it's underthrown, whether it's right on the money, whether it's even overthrown. His receivers find a way to get to the football. So so that just shows him, hey, I can throw the ball downfield, and these guys are going to go and get it for me. So having that confidence in your ability to do the deep ball, a big thing, especially with Jacksonville with these deep threat receivers. Again, and I mentioned this with a couple of these guys, very fluid motion. His screen passes are very precise, whether it's left or right. As I watch this game, very, very precise motion with these guys, very fluid, right where it needs to be. Either side was just perfect. So, again, a very screen-like dink and dunk passer, but, again, not afraid to throw the ball downfield when he needs to. He gets rid of the football very quickly. And again, when it comes to the NFL, he's going against these bigger defenses, these larger defenses, that are going to be constantly on him. To be able to do that and make plays is going to be a big, big thing for him. So that's always a good thing. And he also tends to take advantage of mismatches, when it comes to whether it's height or strength or, size, whatever. He's able to find the playmakers that he knows are going to be able to burn the secondary and is able to make a play to that receiver. So he's able to, know what's out there. So, again, great field vision around him, great motion, precision, and confidence in his deep ball. But I found with Carr there are a lot of things not to like, and I don't know if it's just based on this one game or what, but there are a lot of things I didn't like when it came to Derek Carr. He lacks the elusiveness of the first 3 quarterbacks that I mentioned. Bridgewater is very quick. Manziel is very quick. Bortles is sort of elusive, but not as much as those two. Derek Carr has no elusiveness. He totally lacks it. when there's pressure up the middle, he will wilt right in the face of it. He doesn't make a play. He doesn't try to avoid it. He will take he takes the sack, and he's got to, you know, either find a way to become more elusive or throw the ball away, and so he's got to make better decisions in that regard. So he doesn't recognize. He's got to do a better job recognizing what the defense is doing, what their pressure they're going to bring. Otherwise, he's going to find himself on his butt a lot like his, you know, brother. He has to work on disguising the snap count better. Every single, you know, it was kind of like Peyton Manning with Omaha for a while. You knew the ball was going to be snapped when he said Omaha. You knew Derek Carr was going to snap, and he went when he clapped before the snap every time. Oh, ball snap, ball snap, ball snap. You got to disguise that better. You can't. Otherwise, the defense is going to pick up on it. They're going to know what's coming. So he's got to work on doing that better. And again, maybe Jacksonville or whoever he goes to help him work on that. But dead giveaway. The quick throw thing, that's a nice thing to have, getting rid of the ball quickly, but it kind of tends to backfire when he either underthrows or overthrows a receiver. I saw that a couple times in that game. You know, it's a nice thing to have, but when your receivers aren't ready to catch the ball, or you know, you throw one downfield and they're not even in stride yet, that can backfire on you. So again, you might have to refine that a little bit, but just something to tweak on. He's very risky. He throws into he throws into coverage way too often, like Blake Bortles. You know, and just way too risky. There were at least a couple times in that game where he got picked because of that. So he's gonna have to work on, you know, where he picks his battles, you know, depending on, you know, things. So, and he needs to expand his throwing repertoire a lot. You know, I noticed a lot of times he tends to make the same similar throws. He needs to try different things. He's not very, what's the word? I mean, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. He's not very diversified. That's what I was thinking of. He's not very diversified. The fact that he doesn't make different throws from time to time. It's usually the same screen, the same back shoulder fade, the same, you know. I think he tried the same play twice in a row to the same guy. Again, you can't do that. You've got to be open, and you've got to be able to spread the ball around and make different throws. So with Derek Carr, again, I don't know if he would work for Jacksonville's system for their offense. Again, they're not known as, you know, I mean, you know, they've got a lot of different guys, but their big targets are their deep ball guys, and I don't think Carr would work well in that system. You know, so for me, you know, at this point, after the top three, you know, if Jacksonville's going to wait on a quarterback and wait for these guys to come in the later rounds, I don't think Derek Carr would be their best option. I don't think he's going to be a guy, you know, I think he's going to, you know, you guys going to take on later on down the line in the draft. Because again, as we go to these later guys, you know, you'll tend to find that these guys will have more cons than pros because of the fact that obviously they're going to be picked further on down the draft line. But again, we're kind of looking at them for the fact to see not only will they maybe work in Jacksonville if they go later down the line, but, you know, for other teams, they're looking at quarterback as well. So, again, I don't think he'd work in Jacksonville. I don't think he'd be a fit there because, again, you really want an Eli-type quarterback in Jacksonville. No, you've already got those guys already. So I don't think that would work out in Jacksonville. So out of those top four, for me, I would say either Teddy Bridgewater or Johnny Manziel would be great fits in Jacksonville. You're getting playmakers. You're getting electric guys that can lead a huddle. You're getting guys that never quit on the play. You're getting guys that, you know, just need to work on a few things, but not a whole lot to tweak. With Bortles and Carr, I found more cons than pros. So if I find more pros than cons, I think they're going to work out better in Jacksonville. So, all right. That's it. At least for the first video. Oh, that really shook the laptop there. Slow-mo. That really shook it up. That's video number 1. Those are the first 4 guys that let's look at. Next video, we'll hopefully come sometime next week. Also, there will be a new Tracking the Madness video next week as well. It'll be bracket number 3. Projection coming out. So a lot has changed, a lot has moved in these past couple weeks, so stay tuned for that as well. In the next video, we'll be looking at Jimmy Garoppolo from Eastern Illinois, Zach Mettenberger of LSU, A.J. McCarron of Alabama, and Aaron Murray of Georgia. A lot of big names in that grouping as well. 3 at least from the SEC, so SEC fans will be excited about that one as well. So we'll be looking at those 4 guys in the next video. If you like this series, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you have any other comments or questions about quarterbacks in general or the guys I mentioned in this video, please feel free to leave comments in the channel. What do you think? Do you think some of these quarterbacks will work for Jacksonville? Do you think Bortles or Carr are better than Bridgewater and Manziel? Let me know. What are your thoughts on the 4 guys I mentioned for next week's video? Just get a debate going if you want to. Again, this is open debate, and we're hoping to find the next great quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars and scouting these quarterbacks for the NFL draft. So stay tuned for that. New Tracking the Madness video next week. Thank you guys again for all the support, and God bless. Thanks, guys.